Hey guys, today I'm here with my December wrap-up. I read 13 books and one novella in December, which is my best reading month of the year, which is pretty amazing because I had finals at the beginning of the month. But yeah, I read a lot of good books this month, so let's go ahead and get started. The first book I read this month was Just One Day by Gail Forman. This book is about a girl named Allison who goes to Paris for just one day with this Dutch guy named Willem that she just met, and it's kind of like just a self-discovery story. It was really, really good. It made me like nostalgic for traveling around Europe because I just studied abroad this year. Just the traveling, it just makes me want to travel again, and I loved this book, and I gave it 5 out of 5 stars. The next book I read was Confess by Colleen Hoover. This was about a girl named Auburn who moves to Texas and meets this artist named Owen, and they both have kind of secret pasts, like all of Colleen Hoover's books. This book was good. It wasn't my favorite of hers. I gave it a 2.5 out of 5 stars. The next book I read was 10,000 Skies Above You by Claudia Gray. This is the sequel to 1,000 Pieces of You, which I read earlier in 2015, and I really, really loved it, so I had to read this when it came out. And it's about parallel universes, which is really cool. And yeah, I really like this. I gave it a 4 out of 5 stars. I didn't like it quite as much as the first one, but I liked it a lot. Next book I read was Jacobi by William Ritter. This has been described to me as like Sherlock meets Doctor Who, and I definitely see that comparison. The main character Jacobi is definitely a lot like Sherlock. It's about a girl named Abigail who moves to New England and runs into this detective named Jacobi, and they have to solve all these like supernatural mysteries, kind of like in Doctor Who. And I really liked it. It wasn't my favorite, but I enjoyed it a lot, and I do want to read the sequel. I gave it a 3.5 out of 5 stars. The next book I read was Blood Fever by Karen Marie Moning. This is the second book in the Fever series, and it is a adult urban fantasy series about the Fae, and I really liked the second one. I didn't like it quite as much as the first one, but I still enjoyed it, and I give it a 4 out of 5 stars. Next book I read is My Heart and Other Black Holes by Jasmine Warga. This is about two people who make a suicide pact, and they realize, like, after making the pact that they maybe don't want to go through with it after all. And it's really sad and really heartbreaking, but it's really good, hopeful story too. And I really, really love this book. I gave it a 5 out of 5 stars. The next book I read is What You Left Behind by Jessica Verdi. This is about a guy named Ryder whose girlfriend gets pregnant and then she dies of cancer. And so he's left to take care of their child, and it's just, he's like a big soccer player and he's trying to figure out like his future. Like he wants to play soccer in college and he's trying to figure out how he can do that. And it was really interesting. I couldn't stop reading it. It was one of those books that you just couldn't put down, and I gave it a 4.5 out of 5 stars. Next, I read What's Your Status by Katie Finn. This is the sequel to Top 8, which I read earlier this year. If you don't know, Katie Finn is Morgan Matson, and she's like one of my favorite authors. I didn't like this one quite as much. It just, the characters are, it's high school drama, and I mean, it's kind of fun to read high school drama every once in a while, but the main characters are just, they're high schoolers. They're just annoying sometimes, but I liked it, and I gave it a 4 out of 5 stars. And next I read The Kiss of Deception by Mary E. Pearson. This is a fantasy book. It's a high fantasy book, and it's about a girl who's a princess, and she runs away on her wedding day because she doesn't want to marry this guy she's never met. But unknown to her, two people are chasing after her. One is the prince, and the other is an assassin sent to kill her, and you don't know who is who, and you have to guess. And yeah, I enjoyed this book. I had a little hard time getting into it, which is kind of typical when I read fantasy, but I enjoyed it. I might read the sequel, I'm not sure yet. I gave it a 3, maybe 3.5 out of 5 stars. Then I read Just One Year by Gail Forman, which is the sequel to Just One Day, and it's basically the same book told from the guy's perspective, and it was really good. It wasn't as good as Just One Day, but I still enjoyed it, and I gave it a 4 out of 5 stars. Then, of course, I had to read Just One Night by Gail Forman, which is the novella that comes after Just One Day and Just One Year. And I enjoyed seeing the closure, but I didn't feel like it really did anything for me. And it switched to, like, third person, and I just thought it was a little just weird switch. But I'm glad I read it because it was nice having closure, and I gave it a 3 out of 5 stars. Next, I read First and Then by Emma Mills. This is about a girl named Devon who is in high school, and her parents take in her little cousin named Foster, whose parents are kind of not good parents. So he comes to live with them, he's a freshman, and it's kind of just about her trying to accept him, and she's also meets a guy who's a football player, and it's kind of described as Pride and Prejudice meets Friday Night Lights, which I definitely got that vibe from it. And I really love books that are centered on high school football, because I was in the band in high school, and I just have this like nostalgic feeling every time I read about high school football. And I really liked this book a lot. I gave it a 5 out of 5 stars. And then I finally finished The Main Chronicles by Cassandra Clare, Maureen Johnson, and Sarah Reese Brennan. Magnus Bane is not my favorite character. I enjoyed it. I'm glad I read some of the stories. Some of the stories were good, and some of the stories were kind of meh. But I liked it enough, and I gave it a 3.65 out of 5, which is the average of all the what I rated each individual story. And if you want to see what I rated each individual story, you can look at my review on Goodreads. And lastly, I just finished this book like an hour ago. I read Fae Fever by Karen Marie Moning. This is the 3rd book in the Fever series, and I enjoyed it. I still think the first one's my favorite, which is kind of weird because I know people seem to think it's the other way. I don't know. I enjoyed it, and it left off on a huge cliffhanger, so I have to read the next one, and I gave it a 4 out of 5 stars. So that's all the books I read in December. I hope you enjoyed it, and I will see you again next time. Goodbye!